everybody, and welcome to our final installment of Jonathan Hickman Avengers Book Club, His Secret Wars. I'm here with my comic reading friend from around the world, Fangirl. How are you, and what are you excited about to talk about in the Secret Wars run?
I'm doing fine, first of all. And second of all, I'm kind of very excited to talk about Diva Doom.
Diva Doom. We talked about him a little bit last time, and like, I just love it. And this is all about Diva Doom. This is Diva Doom as the star.
Doom. And you know, I was a little confused though in the beginning. It's like, what is going on? Because the very first issue, I think, even in the hardcover, the very first issue is
it's kind of the world's colliding. Yeah.
Right. It's like, you know, it starts with a
zero issue. Because it's not actually about the secret war, quote unquote. But it feels like,
yeah, go for it. Sorry.
No, it feels like something that DC and that Marvel frequently do in like a zero or a teasing issue. Like Dark Metal Knights or whatever it's called had like the casting, and like Secret Empire had a zero issue that sets up the conflict. And even when I read it originally, I was like, oh, this was #1, because it kind of really feels like the bridge to get us into the Secret Wars, less so than the start of the Secret Wars.
Right. So the thing is, like, I was like, oh, okay, so it feels like normal that, okay, that all the arts colliding. So, you know, we left off in the last one where Oldman, Steve and Oldman, Tony were fighting up, and then everything is breaking apart. And this is like, and there's also a scene where it's like, there's this ship where everyone tried to gets on, and Sulu and Valeria never makes it. Like not a lot of people makes it, and then the ship kind of just goes on, and you know, it all ended. And in this issue, we kind of see what happens with that. We also see Cabal and Namor from their session with T'Challa comes to, you know, goes off to some dimension, and then that's how it ends. And then Secret War began.
I think to get into this at all, we have to talk about the Ultimate Universe and how that plays into this. So Marvel's Ultimate Universe, you know, started in 2000, 2001 with Ultimate Spider-Man, added Ultimate X-Men, Fantastic Four, and the Ultimates, which are the analog of the Avengers. For a time was very, very popular, ultimately strongly influenced the Marvel Cinematic Universe in terms of the takes on the world and on the characters and on Black Nick Fury. But in Marvel now, and in the years leading up to Marvel now, had kind of like tapered off, because interestingly, especially given our discussion last time, the Marvel Ultimate Universe had the perspective of like, time goes on. Like, people die, there's ramifications for actions. We're not going to reverse everything to the status quo. And it kind of got to the point that the Ultimate Universe couldn't really tell stories about the heroes that we knew anymore, because it had killed so many of them and made so many of them evil or whatever, which to me is an asset, but it wasn't selling. And so Hickman actually did briefly write in the Ultimate Universe, and he brings back a concept that he had there that is the Maker. And Maker is evil Reed Richards, who has kind of like gone off the deep end. And when the Cabal narrowly escape being exploded by T'Challa in Time Runs Out, they escape because 2 incursions are happening at once, and they hop from the Earth that's about to be exploded onto the Ultimate Earth, and of all the people to luck into the front yard of, they land in evil Reed Richards' front yard. Like, oh my gosh, do not introduce this man to Thanos, only bad things can occur. But that's what happens. And so ultimately, of course, the final 2 Earths that are going to collide are 616, which is our main Marvel universe, and 1610, which is the Ultimate Universe that includes Miles Morales as Spider-Man. And those are the final 2. And that's where we pick up the Secret Wars first issue. We have the Cabal, basically, Thanos and the rest of the Cabal being like, blow them up, just explode them, this is great. And all of Earth's heroes trying to repel the Ultimate Earth, which probably, if they didn't have the Cabal, might have worked, because the Ultimate Earth does not have as many heroes as the Marvel Universe.
Right. And the thing is, like, I wasn't sure that, because I read Ultimate Spider-Man, the whole run of that, and I also read the Ultimates. And I really didn't like it, but not the Hickman, but the Miller Ultimates. And
I've never read any of it. I've never read a single issue.
Don't, because you know what? Captain America was being a misogynist, sexist. No, it doesn't. It's fine. It's very Miller, and
Yeah,
it's
he doesn't hold a ton of appeal for me.
So. No, it's terrible. But anyway, so I kind of knew but I still haven't read Miles Morales though. So yeah, so I didn't know about the maker or like the Reed Richards of that world kind of gone crazy, because in the Ultimate Spider-Man, Johnny Storm shows up a lot, and he's very
he's
cool.
kind of like the co-star of that.
Right. He like in the later runs, he becomes the co-star over there. But I didn't know about. So yeah, to me it was like, ooh, Richard, he's still evil.
And
like
so
not much different than 616.
No, not really. I mean, he's just in a way. I mean, I don't know my Ultimate Universe too well. I know enough to write a guide about it, but it's like almost like this is a Reed Richards who's unchecked by both love and by the doom that we have. Like I think there is a Doctor Doom in the Ultimate Universe, but they don't. Clearly, this Reed Richards has now become Doom in a way,
right?
Which is like what happens if you kind of like merge those two characters together. So we get a stalemate. Like neither Earth can quite get the other one to explode or back off, and ultimately they collide. And the thing that was supposed to happen happens, which is that the death of all of the Earths, but potentially all of the universes, because these are the last two Earths, and they didn't manage to avoid the final contraction and collision. And so really the Marvel Universe ends at the end of Secret Wars #1. If you were interested in reading the Marvel Universe classic continuity, you should read from the beginning of Marvel Comics all the way to Secret Wars #1, and then you've read all of the Marvel Universe. And then we go to somewhere totally different.
Yes, and that's where I got confused. That's where Freya got confused. Because, I'm like, Freya don't understand any of this. What is going on? So, yeah, we kind of enter in a medieval age where, Doom is the god, and there's some territorial disagreement, and there's some court, and then Doctor Strange is the minister or the right-hand person. He kind of at that point reminded me of a little bit like what's it, Littlefinger from Game of Thrones. He just had that look about him. And then there is also Galactus is the outside, like like he just stands there and looks over the whole universe kind of thing. And then there's like a Thor Corp who are the police, and it begins with a new Thor being included into the police force. And yeah, and I was like, wait, this is not the Secret Wars I read. Where's Wolverine and Spider-Man and them going off to do something that I remember?
Well, in this, I mean, there's a fantastic recap of something that it's weird. I mean, there's no easy way to recap it. And I think to unpack it a little bit, you have to, again, go back to the original Secret Wars from the 80s that Hickman is clearly very reverential and has a lot of love of, written by Jim Shooter, that beyond the original Baby Beyonder put together this battle world drawn from all different worlds around the universe, one slice of Earth with its heroes being one element of that. Doom takes a slightly different approach and basically tries to gather as many parts of the Earths that have exploded as he can kind of grab out of the multiverse with his godlike power. And so we get each little fiefdom represents like a key Marvel story, but not necessarily in the continuity that we know. So there's Marvel Zombies, there's Ultron taking over. There's Mr. Sinister. There's Inferno. But they're all like familiar slices. Even Thor Corps was a thing. It's drawn from a series. I forget if it's the late 80s or early 90s. Not in the same way as it's portrayed here, but again, it's all nothing that Hickman does here in terms of the surroundings is completely fabricated from scratch. All of it is drawn at least a little bit from some other comic book, but kind of like twisted so it's an alternate universe version of it. Because as they explain later, the only parts of the Earth that we know is we get Manhattan from the Ultimate Universe and we get Wakanda from our Earth. And those are the only things that we should completely recognize and feel comfortable with.
Right, and the thing is, like, they also have this wall-like scenario where they're throwing people down, and that's like apparently Marvel's Omniverse. Yeah, is that correct?
But also very Game of Thrones.
That's very Game of Thrones. I was like, whoa, there's a wall there, like and then they call themselves the Shield. Like the rest of the world is like there's a shield that's beyond the wall, or but it's very like very. I wanted to read more about that. To be honest, though, at first I wasn't really on board. I'm like, what is this? I'm not getting any of this. But once I got the hang of it, I'm like, okay, this is a Elseworlds kind of scenario. I wanted to read like a whole series on that.
And that's what all the tie-ins are. So there were 3 kinds of Secret Wars tie-ins. One
really?
was Last Days, and Last Days just basically covered like what was going on as time ran out. And so that doesn't connect to Secret Wars really at all. But then there are Battle Zones and War Zones and Battle World, and basically one kind of book explored a specific zone, and another kind of book explored the conflict between 2 of the zones. And Marvel it was inspired by the original Age of Apocalypse, which put the X-Men franchise on hold for several months while they published all these different books. And so DC also kind of did that with Flashpoint, and Marvel did it on their whole line here. Basically everything gets canceled and replaced by these books that are, some of them are by the regular creative teams, but some of them are just by random other teams, and they fill out the world. But the thing is that like part of it's fascinating because Hickman really is good at like being like, here's the thing I'm bringing in from this title, here's the thing I'm referencing from there. But having read some of the titles, I don't know that Secret Wars gets any better for having read them. Like they're okay. I don't know. I didn't really love any of them, but I had that same feeling as you. Like this Secret Wars is fundamentally an Elseworld story. It kind of turns into a story about characters that we know as it goes on, but it's very much like Marvel's biggest Elseworld story ever. I don't, other than maybe like Earth X, which is one of their other kind of famous end of the world sort of stories that they did almost 2 decades ago at this point.
Right. So, and then we kind of get to a situation where the other ship, including Thanos and the Cabal with Namor, and then the Maker, and also Miles Morales stuck in there, arrives in this world, and then the Thors are sent to kind of investigate what's going on. Well, it's actually Valeria's team who first finds them, and then Doctor Strange kind of goes and tells her like, "Oh, you need to stop doing that," and then he sends the Thor Corps to kind of go and investigate what's up.
And all at that time happens in like issue 2 and 3.
Right.
And to me, this is like the most fascinating part of this whole hierarchical structure of this medieval world, is that it's existed for 8 years already. Doom has kind of like Valeria Richards and Doctor Strange administering this world, and Doom ultimately, like, is he evil? He's still being evil in his nature, but he's trying to just keep this world assembled. He's like, this is all that's left of the whole universe, and he's holding it together by sheer force of his will and as powered by the Molecule Man. And he's like, we can't afford to have conflicts. We can't afford to have heresy. So everybody needs to just assume that we got here 8 years ago, and that's the whole history of Earth
that everyone remembers.
Yeah, it's kind of like, you know, I mean, I don't want to get too off track, but I went to a religious school as a little kid, and I would always be like, well, then how do you explain the dinosaurs to, you know, as we were reading like Bible stories, and without getting into that at all, that's very much what's happening here. Is like, whenever anything gets found that kind of subverts this idea that the world is only 8 years old, it's this, how do you explain the dinosaurs moment for Doom? And Doom knows about all this past thing that's happened. Doctor Strange knows. And the Invisible Woman here, who we'll get into in a couple of minutes, she, to a degree, understands that they came from something before and that Doom has assembled this world. So she knows too, but very few other people actually understand that this world is assembled, especially because none of them are from 616 other than Doom and Strange. Not the Fantastic Four. You have to remember that as you're reading. I'm not pointing at 3, I'm pointing at the viewers. You have to remember that this Susan Storm, Human Torch, Thing, Valeria, none of them are our Fantastic Four.
Right. And so I have something to say about that whole...
I want to get into it.
Like, you know, that Invisible Woman thing, because, you know, I have something to say about that. But the thing is, like, it wasn't until that other ship arrived and then Cabal and everyone kind of comes in, that's when I'm like, oh, I see what's going on. But before that, I was very lost. I just wanted to...
It creates conflicts in the universe, and it creates conflict for us as a reader to give us a cataclysm of like, let's launch this climax, right? Everything's fine. If this ship hadn't been unearthed, Doom's world would just keep on being Doom's world, and things would just continue happening. But what happens is they discover some kind of archaeological factors that seem to date themselves as being not in the same time as this world. They unearth this ship, and the ship is the ship that the Cabal were in, that, along with the Maker, that escaped the Ultimate Universe, and they've been in stasis. Meanwhile, little do we know that Doctor Strange has a similar ship, because they were designed off of each other's patterns,
Right.
that contains the remaining heroes from the 616. And he's kept that in his kind of own Doctor Strange fortress of solitude, never having opened it. So like that's how things kick off and the conflict gets introduced into the world that ultimately it might have been a brutal place to live, but everything was going to be fine if this didn't happen.
Was it though? Because Doom was just sending people off to the wall, like, you know, he was being very Joffrey-like over there, I have to say.
But did he have any choice? Because if any, he was the only, his force of will was holding the world together. So if he didn't, I mean, not to take Dr. Doom's side, like, whoa, but if he didn't, then the world could have just disintegrated around them, which is ultimately what happens at the end.
Right, but the thing is, like, I wasn't quite sure what was Doctor Strange endgame was, because he kept that ship under there for 8 years in status and never opened it, or never knowing, because he know who these people are, because he was part of the deal. Or was he around the Earth when they decided to do, or, you know, out of...
No, he wasn't. He was busy. At that point, he was a full-time papa to the Black Priests. Yeah.
Right. But the thing is, like, at that, like, he would have, I don't know, out of curiosity, he never decided to open it, but... Oh, well. Anyway.
Well, they kind of that's kind of a toss away line where they're like, "You never opened it." And he's like, "I didn't know what to do."
Yeah, I didn't know it was you. I was like,
I do kind of get the sense, though, especially like it's cool that Hickman is using Doctor Strange in this way here, but I get the sense that of all the Illuminati characters, Hickman just does not have a feel for Doctor Strange. Like I kind of felt like that
no one does.
Of the Illuminati. I felt like that when he made him the king of the Black Priests, and I kind of feel that way here. Like he's kind of just using him as like the magical stand-in for Reed Richards. And I just don't feel like he's very distinctly Stephen Strange, which I don't know. It kind of makes him just feel like a little bit of a tool here. Like he was just being used to get our characters from point A to point B. And the most interesting thing is that Doctor Strange had a chance to remake the universe when he and Doom defeat the Beyonders with their Molecule Man bomb. But Strange doesn't feel like he, as a mortal, can make the choice of what to save and what to let go, even though that's his whole thing in terms of his ego as a doctor. But all of a sudden, he can't make that choice. And so that's what lets Dr. Doom be God. They both have maybe as much power as each other, but Strange has cast himself as the Lucifer to Doctor Strange's Yahweh here.
Interesting. That's a deep religious pull there.
I can't help it. It's, like I said, it's my grade school education coming through here.
Right. Yeah, but the thing is, like, so one of the things I texted you about that, like, kind of bothered me, and it always bothers me. So let me try to, like, you know, articulate my thought over here. I never like it when there is a elsewhere story that the villain becomes pretty much tries to live the hero's life, like the villain, you know, that in this case, Reed Richards' life, and he gets the woman. Like he gets the woman, he gets his children. Their children are now his children, and his wife is now, like, you know, now the villain's wife. I really don't like it. I don't like it because, you know, it kind of portrays that Invisible Woman is part of the Reed package, or she belongs to Richard. Like I can't. So the thing is, like, when at first I'm like, are you telling me this is the same Sue Storm? Like,
right.
At first I had,
there's no indication at first that she's not our Sue Storm, and that's I thought that even creepier in a way if it was our Sue Storm.
I thought because she was in another different ship, like, you know, trying to reach, and it never made it. But I'm like, okay, obviously it made it somewhere, right? So I'm like, is that the ship? And I'm like, she forgot, and then he is like, because that's just literally rape. That's rape. There's no question about it. Don't try to fight me. That's rape, because you are brainwashing a woman into having sex with you.
Right, and Hickman, to his credit, is not quite that ham-handed. And it turns out, and I think it's much more interesting, that this is a different Fantastic Four that had no Reed. Her father was the Reed in this Fantastic Four.
Right, but still it annoys me that, because she looks like the other Sue Storm, so he probably just got her, and then because she looks like the other Sue Storm, like, you know, courted her, and then it just like...
And then he makes Franklin and Valeria, who are the genetic reproduction of Reed's kids, but like Doom fathers. Right. So here's, I want to unpack this.
That if Franklin, like, you know, Franklin and Valeria is his kids with this Sue Storm, like we call her Sue Storm A, they shouldn't look like Franklin and Valeria. They should look like other people. Like, but he, yeah, that's that's the thing. It just creeps me out.
Well, I want to unpack this a little bit as a fellow feminist and as a longtime Marvel fan, but as a guy who can't help but see these things differently because I have dude privilege, even though I'm a huge feminist. So Freya sends me this text, and my reply to her in my total dude-splaining moment that I like didn't even believe that I did it, but I did it because it's just came out. I was like, well, Freya, Doctor Doom has always been obsessed with Susan Storm, and this is his story. He's always like, I kind of just like was like, this is the way it's always been, and it's not disgusting because it's always been this way. Which you heard me in many instances on the show say like it's not okay just to ape something that's been happening since the Silver Age and say that it's okay in the modern age. But for some reason, I was like willing to give it a pass here, and so Freya was like, all right, fine, and then I went back to reading and I like really thought about it, and I thought, is this so essential? Yes, Doom's opposition to Reed Richards is central to his character, and yes, Doom wanting to control everything is central to his character, but I think that, and his obsession in a way with Sue Storm is a part of his character, but I don't know that I felt that it was essential for his godhood that he would just find some available Sue Storm to be his wife. Like, in continuity, Doctor Doom did have a love of his life at one point. It just, I don't know, something about it really rubbed me the wrong way. And I know that it's meant to be like an ending to Hickman's Fantastic Four, and in reading his Fantastic Four, there's other things that like make this really work and pop. But after, it's like Freya kind of like took the blinders off my eyes, and once I could see it from her perspective, I'm like, this is bad. This is terrible. What
right,
like what?
Because and that's one of the things though. It's like it's not necessary. What you just said.
Yeah, that's the thing. It doesn't feel required. It just it feels like he did it just because why not do it that way? And then you get like Reed and Doom fighting over a Sue Storm who's not even their Sue Storm. Not that she's theirs of anybody's, but it's like it just kind of gives the whole conflict a weird misogynist tone that it didn't need to have. Yeah.
And the thing, what really kind of ticked me off is that this Sue Storm, even though she comes from a world where Reed Richards doesn't exist, she has a moment of recognition when she saws Reed Richards. That's just like, and this is going to spoiler. We're talking about issue 8 right now because it's kind of, where was she at the end? She was nowhere to be found. Like,
and I think
Sue Storm comes in and she's like, oh my God, Reed! And then went and hugged him. And then I'm like, where's the white one went? Where the white shirt, like, your uniformed Sue Storm went? It was just, I just didn't.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of good elements of Secret Wars, and I don't want to get too hung up on this, but I agree that none of it. And to me, it's like, because it allows Hickman to reduce this into this man-on-man punching fighting thing at the end, which felt very repetitive of him reducing all of the Avengers run to Iron Man versus Captain America. And it's kind of like, not only where are women in this, which in Secret Wars I feel like they count even less than they counted in the Avengers run, but also like, where is the force of love in this? Because Captain America and Iron Man had no love for each other, and you heard me say thematically in the last episode that everybody who lacked compassion died. And in here you have both Reed and Doom saying that they have love in their hearts and that love is derived from Susan Storm, but then where is she in the conflict? It's like you're saying that this thing is your driving force, but then ultimately you wind up with these two men who are just beating the tar out of each other, and they've forgotten that there's this Susan Storm just waiting above ground, being like, I wonder where those guys went. And it just strikes me that like Hickman is like fundamentally missing something in his conception of what motivates the characters and makes the world interesting, because he's not. And that was there in his Fantastic Four run, but it's not there here.
Yeah, I didn't like it. I never like it when there's I'm like, wait a minute, what's going on? I actually texted one of my friends. I'm like, I'm not reading this. I'm like, I don't care. I'm gonna call Peter and I'm gonna text Peter and say that I'm not reading this anymore.
Just like I told you I was gonna quit last week.
Yeah. No, because I was like, he was like, no, he's like, why? I'm like, no, I'm not. He's like, no, this is not the same Sue Storm. I'm gonna spoil it for you. This is not the same Sue Storm. I'm like, are you sure, or you're just telling me? It's like, no, this is not. She's here on her own. But I'm like, still, it makes it just like,
yeah. And then the only other women
like,
in this whole run, it's Valyria, who gets to be cool because she's always cool. Captain Marvel, who like weirdly merges with Mr. Sinister, and like you can't tell if he's bossing her around or if she's bossing him around.
Yeah, where's that coming from?
And
are they like the villains of each other? Like, what's their connection?
I don't know, because I never read that tie-in because I quit reading Marvel due to this event. And yeah, and then who else? I guess Proxima Midnight and the Cabal, although she's quickly captured, and the Black Swan, who basically just goes crawling back to Dr. Doom, and like that's the female cast of this book.
Right. And whatever.
Yeah. So I'm sure some of you were like, oh, SJW, whatever. Like, it's just one way that I grade a comic book. I started reading comic books because I saw an X-Men comic book with a bunch of women on the front. So if you're going to give me a whole 9-issue end of the world epic and no woman really has anything to do with it, then I'm like, okay, well then your world didn't matter.
Right. And it's not like, it didn't matter, but it's one of those things like, you were talking about last week about like, oh, I'm going to stop reading comics because, it was an Elseworld story and stuff. I'm like, if I were doing the same thing because there was not enough women or women were being misrepresented, I would never read comics anymore. So it's one of those things I'm like, whatever.
And it makes you take a hard look at your reading habits in the medium when you're like, so willing to boycott over like, I don't like what happened with this character, or like, I don't like this art change or whatever. Like, people are willing to boycott comics all the time for that. But if you take like a really hard look at like, what are the prevailing biases and like social narratives that are being driven in comic books, like, like Freya said, like if she had to quit reading a title every time women were treated like wallpaper or put in a refrigerator, she would quit every comic book eventually, like,
right.
Yet she's sticking it out and being a comic fan. She didn't run away from comics just because of that, because there's some value in the medium still, even though some of the stories are frankly crappy.
Right. So anyway, we can talk about other things now.
Well, I don't know if I have anything else to talk about weirdly. Like, I know this is anticlimactic, but it's a story. I seriously didn't like it. Like, it's okay, we're on the Secret World Wars world. All the heroes get dispersed. And I mean, it's kind of cool at the end because it's our Black Panther and Namor. I think that's what we could latch on to, is that the opera of Namor and T'Challa continues.
And that's one of the things I was like, oh my God, it's back again. That's
and they have to go on like a road trip together, like it's like even.
I couldn't help but notice this is probably, they were the comedic character of Hickman's run in the end, because they were the one constant.
Comedy and tragedy, though, right? Because like they're working together, and again, you see Namor be like, "Okay, well, you've got the Infinity Gauntlet, so I guess you get to enact your revenge against Doom right now." Like, it reminded me of when Namor said, "Like, okay, we'll help everybody else with their problems while my kingdom is in ashes." Earlier in the run.
Like, wait, what? And then it's like, never mind. Like, anyway, so it's like a comedy, like they're like the comedy duo or like tragedy duo, however you want to. They just show up. They're just a constant. They just show up, and even the world has ended. Their world ended. There's nothing more to fight about. They're still gonna fight about with each other. They still like has like they're both like being cocky, like more Namor being like a diva Namor, and then it was joyful to see, and then also like the Miles and.
Oh yeah,
that was kind of fun. They kind of went to see Molecule Man. It's like Molecule Man. Every time someone comes, they're like, "Oh, do you have some food?" And then Spider Miles kind of brings out a hamburger, and then Peter asks him like, "Where did you have that hamburger?" And then he's like, "Well, it was in my pocket." And it's like,
"3 weeks and 8 years of suspended animation."
He's like, oh, where'd you get it? And he's like, oh, and don't tell me it's from your pocket. It's like, oh no, it's from Earth. And he's like, wait, that's an 8-year, 3 weeks old sandwich? And he's like, well, I don't think suspended animation counts. Like, that's still a 3 weeks old sandwich. And then Miles was like, oh, he shouldn't eat that. So that was a fun moment. That was a very fun moment.
Well, to me, if we're going to discuss the more thematic, if we're not just going to be like plot or whatever, and discuss the thematic elements of this Hickman run, look at T'Challa and Namor, and then I'll get to the Spider-Man. Mm-hmm. These are two men who, by every right, as soon as they see each other, they should be wringing each other's necks, but they're kings. and they've got to put something else ahead of that. And it used to be their kingdoms, and now their kingdoms don't really exist anymore. So now the thing that they're going to put ahead of that is the survival of humanity. And as much as they would love to just rip each other's throats out, they've got to cooperate. And it's like that there's an element of compassion to that. In the same way that Doom had the compassion to remake the world, and Reed has the compassion to want to remake the whole universe, which is supersedes Doom's compassion. You have the compassion of T'Challa and Namor, that as much as they should kill each other, every time they do that, it worsens all of humanity, right? Like Namor sent the Black Order to Wakanda, and that worsened the odds of the entire Earth. And then T'Challa tried to kill Namor, and it sent the Cabal to the Ultimate Universe, which caused all of this. And it's like they realize they can't operate from hatred anymore if they want to solve this problem.
Right.
So that to me was really interesting.
Yeah, and then you also see that Mr. Fantastic and the Maker also work together to come to a solution.
Right. Again, like to have two people, the Maker, who's seemingly devoid of compassion and will double cross just about anybody. He's like has the most self-love for himself and no one else. And he's the one that Molecule Man, just the snap of his fingers, disintegrates. Molecule Man could do that to a lot of other characters and concepts in this universe, but only the character who like is completely self-interested gets completely disassembled. And before we move on to the Spider-Man, I want to say my favorite moment in this entire series is when T'Challa makes all of the zombies bow down to him because he is the King of the Dead. That was amazing.
That was, though. But the thing is, was it T'Challa that they were bowing down, or Namor?
It's T'Challa. He's the King of the Dead. He's the king of the city of the dead, his necropolis.
Oh, okay. Because the thing is, Namor was the one bowed down to the king, and then they all bowed down. So I don't know whether it was because Namor was in the back.
I think Namor was just being T'Challa's hype man there. I think he was just being the MC Namor.
Look at that. We're kind of being like, being the right-hand man now. That's kind of cool.
Right, because they're really buddies. They're totally the odd couple.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, there's also some moment of, like, Thanos Doom kills Doctor Strange, because Doctor Strange, like, now that he got his buddies back, he wanted to, tell everyone else the truth, and Doom didn't like it. He still wanted to do that. So there was a moment like that as well. And then one of the ones that I really liked was Thanos talking to the Thing.
Yeah. So and again, it's really like the compassion Olympics. Like I really could draw like a whole March Madness chart. Like Thanos, who wants to kill everything, is like, there's no fun if there's nothing alive if there's no universe to create the contrast for me to kill within. Because you would think that Thanos would be totally into this. It's like all that's left of the universe on this one little battle world. And Thanos is like, it should be like shooting fish in a barrel. He should love it. But Thanos is like, there's no challenge in this. There's no valor in this. There's nothing to impress death with, because there's not enough. And so Thanos goes to the Thing, who is acting as the wall to keep out all these zombies and robots and things, to be like, you've got to come back and do something about this. Because and again, in acts of compassion, the Thing has become the wall around the Doom's kingdom, and the Human Torch has become the sun in the sky. Right. And it's kind of like one of these, like, they loved their sister, their friend, the Earth, so much that they allowed Doom to make them part of this world. It's almost like a Greek mythology of like a Titan laying down and becoming a mountain range, and it's all part of this Olympics of love. Everybody's love gets manipulated, but it's ultimately everybody's love that makes them powerful at the end of the story.
And I always love that aspect of an Elsewhere story, though, that when they kind of effectively use the characters that we know and love into doing something different, because, that like the Thing as the wall was like, I was like, ooh, that's a very good one. Or like, of course, like, the, what's his name? The fire guy. What's his name?
Human Torch.
My God. Human Torch becomes the sun. So
which
that's one of the reasons.
Yeah?
What is
the
it?
sun that orbits the Earth.
Yeah, the sun that orbits the Earth. So yeah, I kind of always like that. And then and the thing is, like, they had the grand idea of using the dead as their army, because they don't have anyone else. Then so it was one of those things that was like interesting, but there were so many other cool moments in the previous Avengers run that led up to the Secret Wars. By the time we get to that, it was just very anticlimactic.
Well, I want to talk now about the most climactic thing about it, the hamburger that saved the Marvel Universe, which you already told us the background of. So the two
Right.
Spider-Men go into the Molecule Man's weird little white room lair, and Free already told us the whole story. They asked for a hamburger, he's got
Right.
a hamburger. But this hamburger is what motivates Molecule Man to become cooperative in terms of saying, look, Doom, you never bring me food, and neither did Reed Richards. So you guys can just duke it out under your own power. I'm not going to side with either of you. I side with Miles Morales, ultimately.
Right.
And ultimately, you get the sense that the first Earth that gets reassembled in the wake of the Secret Wars, which is our Earth Prime, Marvel 616, but it has all of Miles Morales' characters, including some characters that had died in his run that are restored here. And it's all because of his act of like selfless love and also teenager forgetfulness of having a hamburger in his pocket. But he created that. Like, and that's the core of this rebuilt Marvel universe. It mostly is intact. There's very few things that have been eliminated compared to the Marvel Universe that started Marvel Now and the Marvel Universe that comes after Secret Wars, other than Time Runs Out. Almost everything else counts, is there, but every issue that I read, I have this little moment of like, this only exists because of Miles, and because Miles was the only hero, even with Peter Parker there, who like stopped in his tracks and offered to help Molecule Man.
So is that how he ended up with Art in 616 then? Like
Pretty
that's
much.
how he. Yeah. Okay. All right. Because I was thinking that too. I was like, oh, that's how he came to the current. Because now he's in continuity, right?
Yes.
He's not.
Well, and you get the idea at the end that Reed Richards was going to make all of the Earths anyway, but like that Miles isn't part of what Reed Richards knows about our Earth. So Reed and Franklin and Valeria wouldn't necessarily put him on our Earth, but that was like a little twist from Molecule Man, since he's powering them, that Molecule Man kind of like makes life good for Miles again.
Oh, nice. That's sweet. And I like it. But the thing is, like, so now what happens with all the Earth? So Reed Richards pretty much just restored every one of them. Is that the idea? Well, all the Earth that was destroyed got restored.
Well, here's what's interesting about that, and this is an interesting place to kind of resolve our discussion about Secret Wars. You get that he's making all these different universes, but this seemed like a chance for Marvel to finally have one main continuity and have cleaned it up. Like, they got rid of the Ultimate Universe, they got rid of all these pocket universes. It seemed like Secret Wars was an opportunity to make things really simple and straightforward and streamline their storytelling. And at that point, I actually got a little excited when I read the end of issue 9 and the Fantastic Four all together flinging out universes like they're marbles into the cosmos.
Mm-hmm.
It made me really happy. And then the solicits for the new Marvel All New, All Different came out, and there was still time travel. There were still other dimensions. Spider-Gwen was still in another Earth. And I'm like, what was the point of this?
No,
we
yes.
went through a whole Flashpoint style event. It had a huge Elseworlds component. Marvel had the chance to carefully clean up elements of their continuity that create drag for fans. And you know, just like a you know, something hanging out of the side of your car creates air resistance for your car on the highway. And instead we kind of go right back to the old status quo. And I didn't understand why Marvel didn't use this to streamline things more. It puzzles me still to this day.
So that, I mean, I kind of understood that in the way, like I had the exact same thought as you. I'm like, wait a minute. That was a way to kind of fix that. First of all, I got to hang up with like, what happened to the other Sue Storm and other Valeria? Where are those bees?
They were dead.
Yeah.
They were dead.
Like, right. So it's like, wait, what? When did that happen? And then these other Sue Storm came in, and it's like, oh yeah, we're now gonna be scientists for some time. I'm like, ugh. But anyway, so that happened. But then yeah, at the same time, I was thinking like, wait, so does this mean there's only one Earth doing everything? And then I kind of did a little bit of wiki, and then it's like, nope, it's back to where we are. And I'm like, now I understand why people are so frustrated with Marvel most of the time.
Yeah,
and it's one of those things. Like, that's fine.
As somebody who's chief amongst the I would quit Marvel if there was a full-on reboot, even I, in reading this, was like, you missed your shot, man. I don't know if they needed to go full DC New 52, where they like
I
totally
thought that's
recreate
what
her.
they did.
But I
because
feel like
as
they could
someone
have
who
at least
doesn't-
gone more Rebirth, and I think it's just like Rebirth kind of got right what this got so wrong. Like Marvel came back and they said all of these battle worlds introduce one element into the Marvel universe, and they're all going to be important, whatever. But it was just a big old mess. Whereas like DC was like, look, we're going to rebirth the universe. There's going to be certain things that are significant, but this is going to be a comic book universe that anybody can love. And it's just an example of sometimes Marvel does things better, sometimes DC does things better. And I think Marvel, they had a perfect setup from Hickman here, and I think they kind of flubbed it.
The only way I can think about it is like sometimes this kind of thing happens to me as well. Like I'll go with a project and I will say that, okay, this is what we're going to do. And then the higher manager would come and say, nope, we're not going to do any of this. We're going to do this. And I feel like this is like, this is one of those another like, editorial thing. Or it's like, and Hickman is probably like, hey, listen, I gave you guys a way out, whether you take it or not. So
right. And if you look at the Marvel that comes back after Secret Wars, Marvel was so intent on shaking every little thing up. Like, everything had to be all new, all different. The teams were different. The headline characters were different. I like a lot of those things, but I think that Marvel, they pushed it like too far. They exploded everything, and and they changed everything, but instead of changing everything in a way that would improve the universe, they just changed everything because they wanted to change everything, and it just feels very disconnected. Like, it just doesn't feel like they trusted Hickman enough at the end to take the cue from this thing that Hickman was doing and move forward with it.
And you know what? Like, I mean, you can look at me and you can say that which category of like comic book reader I will fall into, whether it's like SJW or non-SJW. But even me, I'm like, I'm sorry, I need Steve Rogers Captain America. And he cannot be a Nazi, because do everything else with him. Please don't make him a Nazi.
Well, that we could go a whole hour.
I know, but the thing is like, and that too. And the thing is like, I need like, and that to me, I'm like, I understand you're trying to do different things, but you cannot at the same time got rid of Thor, got rid of Captain Iron Man, get rid of Steve Rogers, your key people, like your flagship titles, and transfer them and then say, oh, we're just, we want like, diverse. No, you know what? Give me Miss Marvel, give me Miles Morales, give me like, other characters that can stand on their own, and give me those. But at the same time, I need to have my core characters. So,
I mean, this has gone really far afield from Secret Wars, but I think it's all connected, because this is the jumping off point. And I think it's interesting that Faria and I clearly have some very liberal, inclusive opinions about comic books, and yet this conversation that we're having right now sounds like something that somebody on the other side of the fence would be saying about Marvel. And I think it goes to show that part of why Marvel took such a creative drubbing in 2015, 2016, 2017 is because nobody wound up being happy. The people who wanted all the classic characters back aren't happy. The people who wanted a more diverse set of titles aren't happy. No, the people who wanted the continuity to be simpler aren't happy. Marvel basically came back with this huge slate of titles, massive, none of which were recognizable, and none of which had the support of anyone. And it's like, well, then you fail. You gotta, it's like, if you're a scientist, which Freya is, you can't change every variable in the experiment at the same time. And it feels it absolutely feels like that's what Marvel did. It was like, let's change the variable on every single thing. And they lost the support of every possible person. It's kind of funny because you see these two sides like warring against each other in terms of like Marvel diversity, whatever. But it's like, but both of the sides can agree that Marvel sucks.
Yeah.
We're not actually fighting over whether Marvel sucks or not. We're just fighting over how it sucks.
Yeah, because that's the thing. Like, it's just like they take out Captain America. That to me, I'm like, that's unforgivable. Like, I'm sorry. Yeah, sure, Bucky can be Cap, or Falcon can be Cap, but be a Cap on the other side. I still want my Steve Rogers Captain America be going around and being like, handsome and giving orders and everything. So yeah, that's just me.
Freya, final thoughts on Hickman? We've already said that we think it's good. We'd recommend it. What is the one thing that you remember the most and will always take with you from this run?
Banner pushing tranquilizers through him just to keep himself calm while he's confronting Tony Stark. I will always remember that. That's of all. There's like so many good moments, but that's one thing, because I was so sure that in the briefcase it's gonna be the heads of the Illuminati. I was so sure that was coming. I was like, that's what he did. But oh well, it was one of those fun moments. But yeah, issue 28 of Avengers. That's kind of my top pick.
For me, I think the moment is when Thor throws Mjolnir around the solar system and it comes and explodes through the builder in the middle of Infinity. Not just because it's like a cool moment, but because to me that's how big of a stage we're playing on here. Like we're playing throwing Mjolnir around the universe to destroy an undestroyable builder of the universe. That's how big this is. And to me that, and especially because it was beautiful, and it really speaks to the caliber of the art throughout this run. There's only one or two artists in this whole run that feel like maybe they're not quite up to snuff with the rest of them. And that's something to say about Secret Wars. I know we're like in the ending here, but if we take away all the story concerns and we just talk about this in terms of 9 issues of artwork, this is magnificent.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
He said Ribic is, I mean, he's amazing on Thor, God of Thunder. He's incredible, but 9 issues, uninterrupted. Every panel is great. The coloring, it should be said, also is outstanding. And the coloring is, I'm really bad at saying this creator's name, but it really deserves, is Ive Sforcina. And it is gorgeous. If you're somebody who doesn't get fussed as much about plot as Freya and I does, and you just want to read a good-looking comic book, this is amazing.
I 100% agree. And that was a foresight, that was a foresight on mine that I didn't mention it. But yes, the art is amazing though. And that's one of the things about the whole run. The whole run, even the worst art, I would give it 7 out of 10.
Like all of the art is way better than average.
Right. Well, what do you want to talk about? What one thing you didn't like? You actually have a lot.
Oh, so many. I guess the one thing that really will always bother me about this is that Avengers World had to be its own title. Like, I get that Hickman was tired. I get that they were running out of time to do this in, but to me, like, that made the heart of this run. And the fact that it was off to the side and the fact that they didn't put it in the omnibuses so people are still not going to read it, I just think that's the failure here. I think this whole run would have been better, not only if that was integrated, but if it had another 10 or 20 issues of that kind of heart. Maybe he needed to have a co-writer, maybe there just wasn't enough time, I don't know. But I just always feel like there's a woulda, coulda, shoulda left on the table here, where if it had more of that and it had been more integrated, this run would have been even more powerful to recommend in the long run.
Yeah. Well, for me, it's like I've already discussed it. It's that, lack of female lead. Like that to me, I think it's took away a lot, especially I was hoping to see, later on, I thought it would have been either in the flashback or something that Black Swan was always manipulating Namor. That would have been a very interesting thing to kind of see that, or like Captain Marvel being more included, or there could be a female character in their Illuminati. I don't know. It's just something that I kind of missed.
Yeah, and I think that the Black Swan stuff ultimately not as rewarding as it could have been. I think even if her history had all wound up being the same, but she had wound up being like more manipulative, as you just said, I think that would have made it more satisfying. Like, she's so good. She's probably one of the best things that Hickman created, and yet there's still this feeling that we could have gotten a little bit more from her.
Right. Yep.
All right. Well, this has been Avengers by Jonathan Hickman Book Club. Thank you so much for sticking around, for tuning in if you've been reading along with us. Wow, you read a lot of comic books this month or whenever you decide to watch. So thank you so much for tuning in to Crushing Comics. Thank you so much to Freya, my co-host from around the world, who actually suggested reading this. And thank you for helping me find more love for this run.
Anytime. And it was a lot of fun.
All right, everybody.
And I'm now so ready for the movie. I just want to say.
Let's not lose sight that the reason we did this is to get ready for Infinity War,
which is coming in April 26th. I can't wait. I cannot wait. I already got my tickets and everything. I just cannot wait.
Well, we're probably posting this after April 26th. So.
Oh. In that case, we have already seen the movie. We have already, the movie was amazing. Oh, the movie, it wasn't good. All these years to this.
So thank you so much for reading and watching. This has been Avengers by Jonathan Hickman here at Crushing Comics. Take care.
All right. Bye, everyone.